Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
For live.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk?
Yeah.
Because it's about time to set it off. Are you ready?
Let's go.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk?
Yeah.
Because it's about time to set it off.
Live talk. This live talk. Live talk. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. We're going all the way live with it. With live talk, increase your mentality, put away carnality and increase your spirituality. Let's
Are you
go.
ready?
Live talk.
Are you ready?
This live talk.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk? Because it's about time to set it off. Greetings and welcome to Live Talk. I'm your host, Arthur Jeremiah, alongside my co-host, Minister Samuel.
Welcome again.
All right. And thank you all out there for joining Live Talk today, whether you're on Facebook or whether you tune into the app. Thank you. So today, first and foremost, Minister, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, having a great day, enjoying the beautiful weather here in, I would say sunny Orlando, but compared to other parts of the nation, it's beautiful.
Right. You know, we woke up this morning to 50-something degrees? 56. And they said it was going to level out today. It's not going to get no higher. It's just going to kind of level out today, right?
See, now some people, they be praying for 56.
Hey, right now, a person up north, they like, man, 56. Give me that every day, all day. But definitely, thank you for tuning in today. And for those of you that are on Facebook, thank you for tuning in. And while I'm doing a little commercializing, I want to make sure that you know that we're on YouTube and Instagram. So please do. You can make a mental note to go to YouTube, subscribe, of course, liking the videos that you see there, but definitely subscribe to Orlando, Live Talk Orlando. So that's on YouTube, Live Talk Orlando. If you're on Instagram, because a lot of people use Instagram today as well. If you're on Instagram, go to Live Talk Orlando. Like us on Instagram. Of course, we're on Facebook right now, streaming live. So make sure you like it, etc. We're creating a platform that can be beneficial to our community. So we want to grow it as large as we can grow it. We want to be able to bring community leaders on and different people that can share light in our community and help us as a whole. So definitely go to those pages, Live Talk Orlando, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, like, subscribe, hit on the bell so you get notification for all the videos. All right. Any other commercials we have, brother? Is that it?
I think you got them all.
All right. So since we got that out of the way, we're going to give you a rundown of the program today. First up, we'll have the minister share the word of the day with us. And then right after that, we're going to go to a commercial break. And as we come back from that commercial break, we're going to get into the main topic of the day. Today, we're just going to highlight two, I would say, distinguished gentlemen in our history. We say unsung leaders.
Unsung.
And we want to just highlight them today. And we want to talk about some of the things that people may not know about them. And by all means, when we get to that part of the program, we definitely want you to be able to chime in and share with us information that you may know so that we all kind of help each other out when it comes to this here, because we want to put information out there that's real and that's true. And, the mainstream media put a lot of things out there, and we tend to just go with it because that's the mainstream media, but they control all of that. So we want to create a platform that we can control our narrative as well. So right after that, we're going to go to another commercial break. And when we come back from that, we'll have the book reading of the day or a quote, and then we'll close out with announcements. And then, of course, we'll share with you our next show and what we're doing. So with no further ado, Minister, what's the word of the day?
Well, the word of the day, based on where we are, we're going to go with the word leader. We're talking about leader or leaders. And by definition, a leader is one who rules, guides, or inspires others. A leader is the person who convinces other people to follow. A leader, by its meaning, is one who goes first and leads by example so that others are motivated to follow them. In essence, a leader can work toward making their vision a reality.
I'm taking some notes to that when it goes further and lead by example. Now that's, when you think about a leader, and you just hit the nail on the head. And as a person of influence, you have to be responsible for those that have little influence or may not be able to do certain things that you can do as a leader. And I think when we get into, and I know we're going to get into the topic today, we're going to talk about these leaders today. And a lot of the qualities that we're talking about, a lot of, they exemplify those qualities. For example, when we're talking about being an influencer, like when you run a business, as you're talking about leading and stepping in first, you are a leader of that business.
Yes.
You have to set the mission, the goal, and the vision. And the thing about it, as you set the mission and the goal and the vision for the future of the company, it has to be in a way that those that are in your employees and those that are in the company have to be able to follow that. They have to be able to buy into that. So you have to share it in a way and put yourself as an example of what needs to be done. So if you say, go and clean up the toilet, you got to be an example of, I can clean the toilet too.
Yes. and understand the importance of why you want a clean toilet, because when your customers come in and your bathroom is clean, they will often come back. In fact, Not only a clean bathroom, but you can dress the bathroom up. Not only that it's clean, if they have your vision, it's a welcoming place where people are like, oh, wow, that bathroom feels as comfortable as my bathroom at home.
Right.
Makes them feel at home. Makes them welcome to do business with you.
Right. And see, it's a lot of things as leaders that we have to exemplify for others to say, wow, that's the standard. That's the way. And regardless of the success of the business, a good leader has to maintain his or her integrity, regardless of that. And what I mean when it comes to that, so what does that mean when we talk about integrity? See, a wise man once said that integrity is the integration of outward action and inward values. So when we're talking about a leader got to display the outward actions, but they have to have inward values in order to display that. And when we're talking about leadership, and I'm glad we're talking about it because these are some qualities of a good leader, which we'll be talking about a little bit as we go throughout the program today. Also to say a person with integrity is the same on the outside and the inside. And another thing, this person can be trusted because they never veer from their inner values. Regardless of anything, they never veer from those inner values. So it's important as a leader that you exemplify leadership, that you be the first one to display it and bring it forth so that everybody else to be able to see it. Even if you got a small group of people following you.
Right.
Because the thing about that is, if you stay to your values, you don't let nobody deter you. Because we know there's a scope of, a broad spectrum of information that's out there that's led by others. And as a leader, you can't get caught up in that because there's a cause in place that you have to commit yourself to that may not be favorable to the masses of the people.
And that's how you can determine a leader when you see them demonstrating their values in their actions.
Right.
That's the mark of a leader.
That's it.
See, anyone can talk, but a leader leads by their actions.
That's it.
Which inspires others to follow.
That's it. And I'll say one more thing about leadership, because these gentlemen that we're going to talk about today, this is another quality. Another thing that makes a good leader is the ability to stand against critics. It takes focus and it takes commitment to stand against critics. Because see, there's always going to be somebody that criticizes what you do. There's always going to be somebody that talk against what you do. And a leader is also considered a ruler, which reminds me of Proverbs 25:28, which reads, "He that has no rule of his spirit is like a city that's broken down and without walls." So a leader has to be a ruler at the same time to commit himself to the cause or the action that's required.
He has a rule over his own spirit. Like you say, if that's the mark of a leader, because even though the critics or outside influences come against them, they hold true to them values, sometimes regardless of the consequences.
That's it.
Then a leader comes through.
That's it. And it don't matter to them because they have those inner values that they're going to stick to. It don't matter. Nothing can deter them, regardless of what it is. They focus on that mission. All right. So we're going to go to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get into the meat of our discussion about it's going to be centered around Black history. Is Black history represented in American history? But we're going to highlight two gentlemen today that was leaders of their time. We'll be right back. Hey, shalom and blessing, y'all. This is Author Jeremiah Israel coming to you live. Listen, I'm so excited because my ebook version of The Spiritual Significance of a Name is now available. You can go to my website today at www.jeremiahisrael.com. Now, this ebook is pretty much available anywhere and everywhere that ebook is sold. I'm so excited about that because, see, ebooks are sold internationally, but I would like for you to go to my website at www.jeremiahisrael.com, pick up your copy, or you can go ahead and download the ebook version of it. Whether you're on a plane, whether you're traveling, whatever you're doing, pick up this copy. It's only $4.99. It's not going to break your pockets and not going, break the bank. So go ahead and get the copy of this ebook now, today, $4.99. Go to jeremiahisrael.com and truly become blessed because it will truly put you on a path to defining your true purpose. Until next time, peace and prosperity. All right, so welcome back to Live Talk. And as mentioned, we're going to talk about or highlight two gentlemen that contributed to Black history and also to the world history as well. I reference Black. I'm not talking about, when I reference Black, I'm not talking about, well, I would say this here. I'm talking about the people that are descendants of slaves here in America. Because I know a lot of times when we reference certain names like Black or what have you, there's a certain, mindset will come out and say, well, we're not Black. And I understand that. Right. But when it comes to referencing those type of people, it's called by many different bywords. So what we're going to do today is make sure that we clear that up. So we're clear on when we're talking about Black, we're talking about the descendants of slaves here in America. And one of these gentlemen just had a national birthday,
Right.
Martin Luther King's Day. And the other is Malcolm X, the notorious speaker of the Nation of Islam. Now, there's a lot that we don't know about these brothers. A lot has been taught about them, whether in our school systems, et cetera. Not so much about Malcolm, but a lot about Martin. Mm-hmm. And we build this notion that we understand and we know them. We know what they was fighting for, and to a certain degree, yes, because a lot of things may have gotten passed based on some of the efforts that they put forth. But they also was fighting for other things later on in their ministry that some of us don't know about because it ain't been talked about enough, Minister. Right. So, so the public school system talk about one thing. What do you think they leave out when they talk about it? And let's talk about what they talk about, and then maybe we can shine some light on what they may leave out.
And that's a good point, because generally, of course, we're talking about the civil rights movement. And as you said, what they talk about is what happened in the early 60s with civil rights, as far as giving people of color certain rights, which they should have already had. But they talk a lot about the civil rights movement, specifically when it comes to Martin Luther King. They'll talk about, we all are familiar with the I Dream speech that was made. And it was a wonderful speech. It was very inspiring, because not only was it inspiring for us as a people here with the oppression that we experienced in America, but universally, his message reached out to people who were even beyond the confines of America, regardless of your race or color. If you were being oppressed, his message spoke directly to that. And that is celebrated and is taught. They'll tell you that, most know that he was a pastor, mm-hmm. and that he taught nonviolence. A lot of that came from actually Gandhi's philosophy out of India of nonviolence. And of course, he was also the son of a Baptist preacher.
Right.
And then they talk about it from a universal hand holding, and they promote it as if what he said or did is come to full fruition. So if you just look at it on the surface, it seems like everything that he talked about has come to pass, and that's all history, because everything is, I don't want to use the term hunky-dory now.
You know what?
But that's the way they want to, that's the way it's pushed in the American system, mm-hmm. because they gave him a holiday. And kudos.
Right.
I'm glad that they did.
Mm-hmm.
I respect that. It's wonderful. In my opinion, it took way too long.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he had to die
for that to happen. They even talked about it to bring up the conversation about it. Because what it was, about 13 years later, that the holiday was signed into law.
I have to look. It's been
I think
you're giving them more credit than they think. I don't know if it might have been 13 years ago. It took a while. I have to do my facts, but it didn't come in there. Shoot, the march might have been 50 years ago, but I don't think we've had the holiday. I can't remember.
I think it was around 1983, if I'm not mistaken. I can look back and see.
Is it? Did it? Well, kudos. If it took them that long, but they finally got it signed in the legislation.
They did, and that's the thing about it. And by all means,
kicking and screaming,
right? you have to think about, like, Martin Luther King wrote a lot of speeches. Mm-hmm. If you look right now, you was to Google Martin Luther King, like, quotes. He has a lot of different quotes, great quotes as well. And when you think about that, you think about the genius of this man. You can tell he was learned. he was a learned man. He came from a background, as you mentioned, as a reverend, a pastor. In fact, his father's father was a reverend pastor, so he come from a lineage of that. So these are educated Black men at this time of history. So they had a lot of influence. Well, I would say Martin had a lot of influence, because when you think about it, we don't hear about maybe his grandfather, his father doing some of the things that he did, but we hear about him doing some of these things. Now, and he did it when he didn't have to do it. Think about it. This is a man that has great influence, can, talk to any politician, can have the best, really the best of the best. But what he chose to do, he chose to stand up for his people, because he understood, he's seen the discrimination, he's seen the cruelty that was treated against his people. So he sought to stand up as a leader, as we're talking about, to take on some of these challenges, but in a nonviolent way, as you mentioned. He took another approach towards it. And I think that speaks to his genius as far as his intelligence, to say, like, we can't beat these people physically with guns.
Because they got all the guns.
They got all the guns. So why not use another approach to try to get through to them? So this was one of the things that he did early in his ministry. And this was what we talk about today, even in the school system. We talk about this. We talk about, like you say, I had a dream speech. I had a dream that all the small Black children and white children can be in the class together, they can be together and hold hands together.
From a nonviolent perspective.
From a nonviolent perspective. And when we look at it, we say, okay, yeah, Black children in the classroom with white children. But the question would be, has it truly been accomplished?
See, because what you're saying now is what's not talked about, because that was his universal message because of his background as a pastor. But politically, he was talking about the educational resources and the ability to achieve of this little Black boy and little Black girl will be able to go just as far as a little white boy and a little Black girl, based on the context of their character rather than the color of their skin. And see, that gets lost in the message, because that hasn't happened yet today.
Right.
We still haven't got there.
Right. And I think that was one of the things that he found out. He found out that if this Black child get into a white school, would they be treated the same? Would they receive the same education? Could they connect with the teachers that are teaching? Because this is some of the issues that we have today. You got our children in classrooms with white teachers that can't connect with them. And the first thing they say is they're a troublemaker.
Right.
Because they don't understand what you're talking about. So they're either a troublemaker or they're slow.
So they don't pay attention.
Yeah. They need to be put in another classroom.
See, that's miseducation. See and the reality behind that is, just as in that day when you had governors in places like George Wallace, who physically stood at the door and said, I'm gonna call it like it is, ain't no niggas coming in my school.
Right.
You have that same unfortunate mindset today when you haven't diversely taught some teachers the differences between Black students, white students, because our backgrounds are different. So the system has to be able to reach you in a different manner. Right.
And you think about all the stuff that we're talking about, as far as, all this come together, nonviolence and all that was accepted there. We have to ask the question, why was he assassinated?
Exactly. See, the whole point, he taught nonviolence. Now today, people will say it was wonderful. He had nonviolent means of approach, but he was murdered.
let's go to.
But he was talking nonviolence.
Right.
So why was he murdered?
So I'm glad you bring that that up. Let's play a clip from Martin and let's see what he was talking about, like during that time that he got assassinated.
American Negro collectively is richer than most nations of the world. We have an annual income of more than $30 billion a year, which is more than all of the exports of the United States and more than the national budget of Canada. Did you know that? That's power right there if we know how to prove it. We've got to strengthen black institutions. I call upon you to take your money out of the banks downtown and deposit your money in Tri-State Bank. We are telling you to follow what we are doing. Put your money there. You have 6 or 7 black insurance companies here. Take out your insurance there. Now, these are some practical things that we can do. We begin the process of building a great economic base. We've got to give ourselves to this struggle until the end. We've got to see it through.
So as you can see, like I'm gonna let you speak on that, Minister.
See, my question is, why is that speech not properly why is that not pushed? Why do we not hear that message that Martin put out as eloquently as the one that everybody knows? This one was even more eloquent and more realistic about things we can do to make an actual change. Why is that message not put out? See, people get confused on why he was assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
See, the powers that be did not like what he had to say. And when he starts speaking in this manner, then he became a serious threat.
Right.
And they had to silence him.
Right.
Because we don't hear, why don't we hear this message? You can look for this one, but why don't we hear it? On his birthday, I mean, from radio to TV, all I could hear was, I have a dream. That's all I could hear. Why are we not hearing that message?
It was talking about true unity among black folks. Now, we talking about a man that had influence, like real influence. And the words that he uttered out of his mouth can make people move, can cause people to do some things. You have to really think about that, and when you're talking about something that's going to go against the status quo of their system and society, having the black man and the black woman enslaved, then that's the issue. Because now you messing with my slaves. Because if you raise them up that they don't need me no more, then what I'm gonna do?
So you finna take a big slice of what we're accustomed to using from them, and someone who's a leader who can motivate people, and he had the influence. If the people would have heard that message and took heed, they would have pulled that slice. So it's like, okay, as you say, we can't let you take our slaves because you finna change our economy around.
Right. And one of the things, he talks about, and maybe you can shine some light on this here. He talked about at that time, we have an economic of, I forget how many billions he said. Mm-hmm. And I think in the trillions.
In the trillions. It's trillions. 1.3, last count 1.3, it could be up to 1.5 trillion. We are one of the largest. The spending power of the so-called black man here in America is, I believe, somewhere in the top 10 in the world. It's larger than the most nations of the world.
Wow.
Larger than Canada, but Canada is sovereign.
So think about, like, with that type of information, bringing the people together, uniting the people, and they're pooling their resources like that. What type of effect now is that on America.
See, their freedom now means, see, now you have to take that little black boy and little black girl that you're talking about, and now there's no need to ask, can they sit next to a white or a black girl? They automatically at that same table.
Right.
They now become equal ground. They have true, like his message was about, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, because they wrote us in as, 3/5 of a man. It didn't really apply to us. He was saying, no, it needs to apply to us. And here's methodology to make that happen.
Right. So you had two leaders at this time. You had Malcolm, Martin, and then you had Malcolm. And at first in their ministry, as we talked about and shared, one was more like the nonviolent, more peaceful one. He went about putting on demonstrations in a peaceful way. The other one, on the other hand, was like a fiery bullet.
That's it.
So let's talk a little bit about Malcolm. They was at the same time, they clashed at early on in their ministries, and what they felt like was needed for our community.
And see, I would say, I would even go to their mission was the exact same mission. Their methods had differences, but they had the exact same mission. See, the media, or not even the media, see, the image that they want to portray is they want to put them as if they were at odds, when they really weren't. There were differences. Like, see, as you pointed out earlier, Martin came from, his father was a minister. His father was a minister. See, so if people may not be aware, even though it was in the 60s during segregation, Martin was actually affluent. He was educated. He was well-educated, college degree. He had a doctorate. So his experience gave him a different view. Even though he had to deal with racism, his experience being college educated, coming from wealth or affluence, gave him a totally different view of how to maneuver the system. Whereas when you get Malcolm, on the other hand, whose father was murdered when he was like 6 years old, extreme poverty, he experienced white supremacy up in his face. Whereas Malcolm, having well-to-do and more money, more influence, he didn't experience it the way Malcolm had to do it in the streets.
Right.
He didn't get, kicked and beat. And see, Malcolm was very educated, believe it or not. He was the smartest in his class. Yet he had one of his teachers tell him, you can't be a lawyer. You need to become a carpenter. But he was smarter than everyone in his class, including the white students. He was the smartest and the top in his class. But he was told, you can't become a lawyer. You should be a carpenter. Got him so upset, he decided to drop out. But being in poverty, a single mother, he wound up getting in the streets and dealing with gangs and dealing with racism, which caused him to go to prison and have to do prison time. So his background and upbringing is going to be totally different than someone who came up in a sheltered society as a minister, the son of a minister with influence and a degree, so you could communicate with your oppressor on a different level.
Yeah.
He didn't have that on that level. He had to deal with the butt of a gun.
Right.
He had to deal with violence like on a daily basis. He had to deal with the brutality of the prison system for a Black man in the 60s. And yet he was able to come through all of that and become self-educated. So his message was, I don't need you to police my community. The Second Amendment gives us the right to bear arms. So we can bear arms and we can police our own community. And if you come and brutalize us, if you hit us, we go hit you back twice as hard.
Right.
See, because I saw you murder my father. So I'm not going to let you murder me. If you come and attack me, I'm going to attack you twice as hard. So their upbringing brought them up with two different philosophies, but their goal was, to raise up our people.
Right. Insane. And I agree with that, because when you come from, and I think the biggest thing that we experience, and I say amongst us as people, when we talk about religion,
Yeah.
because now you're talking about two different methods of how to go about accomplishing the goal, of course, as far as speaking out against racism, wanting, speaking out against discrimination, or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, you preaching a Baptist way
Yes.
of how that looks like, and then you preaching an Islam way
Yes.
of what that looked like, and trying to get people into Islam. One thing I will say, Islam at the time was a safe haven for most Black folks.
Yes.
At that time, because they was doing for themselves. From the philosophy, as we know, Marcus Garvey and some of the others before. And I think and to your point, everything that you said about Malcolm and just being in the streets and have to hustle and have to, deal with all these crooks and things like that, it develops something within that individual that sometimes you can't come back from. It was fortunately, and I hate to say it, I mean, he did the time in prison, did 10 years, but it was fortunate that he may have went to prison to be able to get educated like he did.
Yes.
And it was in opposition in his mind to the system. So he wanted nothing to do with the system that was, brutalizing our people and all these things here. He felt like Christianity and what Malcolm was not Malcolm, but Martin was talking about was contributing to that. And now you want to bring our people into something that has always been a crutch for, not a crutch, but always have brought us down in his mind. In his mind, that was something that destroyed us. You're trying to bring us together with that. I'm trying to separate us from that, because that's a wicked system.
His life and his experience with that was see, why do I want to go to the table with the person who wants to murder me, who has murdered me, who has murdered my father, who has raped my mother and raped my sister and killed my brother? So his message was separate. He could appeal to the man on the street. He could appeal to the one who was destitute and didn't have anything, because he came about self-help. And see, the Nation of Islam at that time, which was under Elijah Muhammad, when they were telling Black people that you need to do for self, they did enormous things for self. And they were able to show that by coming together. If they don't want us at their table, we're going to create our own table.
There you go.
And then we'll be accepted. And they actually were accepted at their own table, and it began to thrive and it began to flourish. So it could show the man on the street who didn't have the opportunity, like Martin, to be able to go get a higher level. See, it was not easy to get a higher education. Everybody didn't have the opportunity that Martin had to go after the higher education. If you've been in the street, you got a criminal record. See, some doors were closed. So see, Martin had a different perspective, where Malcolm's perspective was, in order for us to achieve, we have to achieve it through self. So we need to separate and build our own. And that's how we get our freedom.
One thing I noticed, like with Martin, as the March on Washington, and the most famous one when he did I Have a Dream speech, it was a more diverse group of individuals from all different nationalities, different races. And it's almost like, and I know it was a lot of discrimination amongst all, colored folks, but mainly us as a people. And, just to look at that, hey, you go, you got this going on, we got our own personal issues that we need to be addressing. And here you go with Martin, when somebody say, how can we help? You say, like, you can't help. There's something that we have to do.
Right.
It's something that you see, because now if you help us, now we have to give you credit for helping us. No, we're not going to give you credit for helping us. This is a time that we have to pull ourselves up our own bootstraps, and make things happen. And that's what I think his philosophy and their philosophy early on kind of clashed together.
Yep.
But I think as they move forward, as they begin to learn more and be able to kind of take, I guess, step back and just kind of look at the whole situation.
Mhm.
Because here you go, Martin being spit on, all these different type of things, trying to be a mediator, if you will,
Right.
between these folks,
Mhm.
the oppressor, and his people,
The oppressed.
the oppressed. And he's been marked, and all type of things while he's doing this here. At some point, you say, why in the hell I'm doing this?
Thank you.
I got a people over here that bring in billions of dollars a year. Why we're not pooling our resources and creating our own society? And then now, and we just heard that clip. Now here go Martin, same thing, and he's speaking the same thing. Malcolm. You know, I get twisted them up.
Right.
I say Martin, Malcolm, then I might say Malcolm.
Two sides of the coin. Two sides of the coin.
It sure is. And we talked about why we think they was assassinated. So let's turn to that clip from Malcolm.
We should own and operate and control the economy of our community. We have to become involved in a program of re-education to educate our people into the importance of knowing that when you spend your dollar out of the community in which you live, the community in which you spend your money becomes richer and richer. The community out of which you take your money becomes poorer and poorer. And because these Negroes who have been misled, misguided, are breaking their necks to take their money and spend it with the man. The man is becoming richer and richer, and you're becoming poorer and poorer. And then what happens? The community in which you live becomes a slum. It becomes a ghetto. The conditions become run down. And then you have the audacity to complain about poor housing in a rundown community. Why, you run it down yourself when you take your dollar. So our people not only have to be re-educated to the importance of supporting black business, but the black man himself has to be made aware of the importance of going into business. And once you and I go into business, we own and operate at least the businesses in our community. What we will be doing is developing a situation wherein we will actually be able to create employment for the people in the community.
You know, Minister, you want to chime in on that a little bit?
Now, see that what I just heard is two men who, with the exact same message.
Right.
That message was almost like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's the same message off the same playbook. Yet it will make it appear that they were on different ends of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
But as you say, as time going on, they went through the struggle, they came to the same reality.
Right.
And this is what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that reality, that's why they were assassinated and taken away from us.
Right.
They try to make all these reasons why they did and what they didn't, but that is why.
And that is why. Because when you think about it, when most like groups come together, like we always talk about, we need to come together, you know, as a people, and we'll create a table, and you might see 10 people at that table, and we start talking about, you know, all numbers of things, talking about the issues and the problems and all this here. But as soon as we start talking about solutions like that, pooling our resources, building our community, and things of that nature, the tables start to get very small.
Yeah.
Now it's 8 people there. Now it's 6 people there.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's 4 people there. Now it's 2 people there. We starting to stretch again.
Yeah.
That's been our issue.
And see, that's systematic. See, that's the seeds of racism and hatred, because we have not been taught that. And then that's when outside influences want to come in and say, oh, well, you're teaching separatism and you're teaching hatred. How can it be hatred to support yourself?
Right. Right. In your community, because think about it, like our community's been in distress for I don't know how long. You know, and the sad thing about it is, and I grew up in the inner city. And shoot, you know about Candy and Sunlight and
Yes.
all those places. Have they ever been owned by somebody look like us?
They put our picture up there.
Yeah, they did have a
They had a picture up there, but it wasn't owned by us.
Never been owned by us, but we support it. All our money go into it.
Mhm.
But when we put our money in there, where it goes at?
Outside of our community.
Outside of our community, somewhere else. So it's almost like we live in the community, but we don't own the community. And you had both of these brothers talking about solutions. And like Malcolm, like not Malcolm, but Martin was talking about these are some practical things that we can do. Practical things. Let's find a black bank.
Yes.
Let's pool our resources into this black bank as one, all us together. Let's then, Malcolm, let's then build some, buy into some businesses in our community so we can hire people that look like us.
From the community.
From the community. These are
And the bank can make loans to us because it's our money.
Right.
We're not going to get turned down because of our color, because we all the same color.
And these practical things that we can do. And that's what these brothers were talking about. But if you had to describe them probably in their early years coming up, how would you describe Martin, if you will?
Well, I like to refer to it in spin history. I would describe him as the shield.
Okay.
You know, the protection.
Okay.
You know, that the protection to keep the darts from attacking me. I would describe him as he's the shield, the protection.
So he was able to take in we call it he was able to take in those darts and
our defense. He could defend us.
Right. Okay. And then what about Malcolm? What did you say?
Now, Malcolm would definitely be the sword, because he's the one that can win the battle. Because if someone is coming to hurt you or to do harm, you must be able to protect yourself.
Right.
It's like if you go into a war and you fight against an enemy and they have bullets and you have no bullets, you're going to lose that war.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If you playing a football game, if you have a defense, but you have no offense, there's no way for you to win.
That's right.
It's going to be almost impossible for you. Almost impossible for you to win.
You got to have a very good defense.
You got to have one heck of a defense, especially if the people fighting against you have a defense and an offense.
Right, right.
Because you need somebody who can put points on the board for your team. You need somebody who can make progress for your team.
Right.
Someone who can make the enemy think twice before attacking you.
Right. I guess coming from a legal background and just thinking of it from, when you're in court or when you're going through a process of court, like to me, like Malcolm will be like that mediator, right? He sit right there and he's like, okay, so what you think we can do? How can we come together and make this happen? And he was always like that mediator for Black folk. And he was like that one that sat right in between. And see, a mediator also is a negotiator when you think about it. And a negotiator is an advocate. And see, he was an advocator as well, which is the advocate is a person who speaks or writes in support or defense of a person or cause. And I think there was a cause that was in place that made him that mediator, that advocator. But like you say, when it comes to Malcolm, though, see, Malcolm was like that prosecutor. I'm finna persecute your butt, like for all the evils and the crimes that you did. I want life. For everything he did. He was very fiery in everything they did, and he didn't have any mercy because they didn't have mercy for us.
Give me justice.
Give me justice at the end of the day. And that was who Malcolm to me was. He provided that type of fiery feel behind himself and how he addressed the opposition or the opposer. and I think that's when you describing them, that was one of the things that kind of stood out to me as far as that mediator and that prosecutor.
And you need both in order to succeed, in order to move forward. Without that balance,
right,
it will never work.
Right. So it's almost like, you know what? I see in court sometimes, well, you can go through mediation. Okay, we'll try mediation, but if mediation don't work, we got to go to trial.
Exactly. And now you need somebody on your side who's going to push your case.
Right.
And see, to that, like, for example, we do have Martin's holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the things that Martin is like, he was against police brutality.
Right.
Okay, but George Floyd got murdered in that 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years? Yeah.
This is recent.
Yeah.
This didn't happen in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
See, but he was against that. Yet it's still going on.
Right.
See what I'm saying? It's still going on.
Right.
Because even though he's a mediator, you need a prosecutor.
Yeah.
To cut. And it's great that this one out of many finally was sentenced, but it never should have happened in the first place.
Right.
So it's great that he's going to do time for his crime, but that should never happen. See, the police should not be killing us on the street for no reason.
Right.
He believed in equality and income. That Martin pushed for that. Well, he believed in voting rights. He believed that our people should have the right to vote. See, back then they had poll taxes, they had dogs, they had the Ku Klux Klan standing around intimidating Black people for voting. Yet here we have a bill in the Senate today, and they still making it hard for people of color to vote. Yeah. Yes, you can vote, but it's like if you got to stand in a line for 12 hours.
If you can get past all these obstacles, you can vote.
Yeah.
If you can stand in line for, like you say, 12 hours, you can vote.
What about somebody who got a cane?
Right.
I saw people on their walkers. Mm-hmm. They got to sit in their little chair, and then when the line moved, they got to get up and walk. Yeah, okay, is there something wrong? And you trying to make that even more difficult. Right. But see, Martin, he stood for that. Yeah. Yet that dream that we talking about has it. That difference is, see, Martin saw a dream to make it happen. Malcolm, unfortunately, lived a nightmare, which made them have two different approaches to the same thing.
Right.
You got a head of the coin and you got a tail on the coin.
If I can probably say what Malcolm's dream was, is that the oppressor hanging on the tree. Yep. That's probably what his dream would have been.
So, and then now you can understand and feel where we have come from. Right. It's like you have, unfortunately, people who will say things in this country as if it belongs to them. When it comes to people of color, yet you're not the indigenous people of this country. You came here and took this from what they want to the Native Americans called any. You came and took this country from these people, and now you will say that as if it's yours. Yet, for another group of people who want to be a part of this promise, you want to lock them out.
Right.
You want to make it difficult for them to get to that American dream. And though the door is cracked and a few of us can get through, that crack, it's like freedom means there's no crack. The door's supposed to be wide open.
So as we get talk about, and we're talking about their, the process of them getting to where they ended in, and for a majority of their times, the nonviolent way of doing things was how Martin did it. And of course, we know Malcolm has been that fiery one. But we also know that as they got to the point, like we heard both of those clips, they was looking at coming together.
Yes.
And in a more mild way, kind of understanding a lot. in life. Because you think about it, you know, if we look back at Malcolm, I think how old Malcolm was when he passed, in his late 30s or somewhere.
30s. Yeah. I don't think he lived to be 40.
Right. So now you're talking about a young man at the time when a lot of the stuff that he said, and that's why I think even with Elijah Muhammad saying, you know, trying to, you know, coming down, he's a, you know, young man, I know you're fiery and all this stuff, but that's tone it down a bit. But, you know, he was just on a mission to destroy any type of a wicked notion of a wicked, I would say, messaging or action that was committed to our people. You know, he was on a mission to destroy that in any way or to publicize it or criticize it in any way or by any means necessary, which for most people at that time, you know, you would root him on for that because, you know, what we was dealing with.
If the door wasn't open, Malcolm's going to kick it open.
Right.
Don't tell me I'm not waiting for you. I'm kicking it open. But it's my door. I'm kicking it open.
But we know both of them wasn't as favorable at during those times.
No one likes to talk about that.
Yeah.
See, Malcolm was very unfavorable, but he didn't care.
Right.
And his speeches elevated him amongst our people to a completely different level. Mm-hmm. Malcolm, as eloquently as he spoke during his time, he was hated.
Yeah.
Not just among white people, but among black people. Yeah, you had a lot of people march, but the sentiment at the time was, don't follow that man. Mm-hmm. He's a troublemaker, and he'll get you killed or he'll get you arrested. That's what they had. That's what black people were saying. Mm-hmm. White people call him a troublemaker. After he was murdered and assassinated, you had a large percentage of white people supporting his murderer openly. They were openly supporting the one who murdered him. But he was saying, little black boys and little black girls should be able to come up in peace. We Christian, we say we believe in the same God, then we should be equal. But the people at the time said he deserved what he got. And they took the side of the murderer. And they don't talk about that.
Right. Right. And it's, I think even until now, we're starting to kind of recognize and appreciate some of the things that they may have done during that time, you know, coming out, looking back and seeing the messages and seeing certain things that may have been spoken by Malcolm, because Malcolm ain't talked about in the public school system.
No, he's not.
Yeah. So how do, and see, that's why it's important to have a platform such as this so that we can highlight some of these unsung leaders. That's what we're going to call it, unsung leaders, so that people begin to know about them. And if they know about them, they can also chime in and share information that they have about some of these, because there's a lot of information out there about them. I'm pretty sure we're not going to talk about it all.
Wouldn't maybe get to it all.
Yeah. So I would say, for our listening audience, if you do want to chime in on this conversation, by all means, you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you, get you in, and you can just chime in on this conversation about the topic today. And we're going to be doing this here for all the way out through February, trying to highlight unsung leaders, black leaders in our community, and those that did some things that a lot of people don't know about, and they don't talk about it in the public school system. So it's going to be a lot of information that we share. We're going to highlight a lot of different individuals, but we just wanted to start off by just identifying some of the ones that a lot of people do know, but a lot of people don't know at the same time. Because like I say, Malcolm isn't one that a lot of churches cared for. You know, they would talk against him in his rhetoric, as they will, until some of them, as they learn more and study more, it's like, this he was a upright guy and wanted what was right. But you have to take into consideration he was young.
Yes,
he was young. He was only going to get better. you know, and I think in his last days, though, I think he was at that point to make a true difference in our community and bringing our people together. And he made an effort to go and speak with Martin.
Yes.
And to actually do that. And I think that was very noble of him at that time.
Oh yeah, they were coming together later on the same platform. And you have to understand that we promote in this country freedom of religion. That's what we say. But because he didn't come in the state religion, well, shouldn't he still be able to have the freedom to practice whatever faith he believes? If you say you believe in freedom of religion, then why persecute someone because he's of a different religion?
Right.
Yet his message was about uplifting our people.
And the thing about it, and you and I talk about it, I think you speak about it more eloquently when it comes to, you know, what divides us as a people, even today. You want to share a little bit on that? Because as we come together as brothers, you know, we talk about the little small things that divide us, but we don't talk about all the things that connects us.
See, that's the seeds of racism, which we see. You have to acknowledge something before you can get past it. Like, for example, an alcoholic will never get over being an alcoholic or alcoholism until they can admit that they're an alcoholic.
Right.
As long as they don't want to admit it, they will never get past it.
Right.
See, racism is real, and this country has to accept it. And see, I'm going from respect, and it's not even about white people.
Mm-hmm.
See, as we as Black people, we have to admit that racism is real. And when I say that, people say, yeah, we know racism, but racism has been inbred in us. And it causes us, when we come together in unity to do the things which we need to do for ourselves, racism will give us an excuse why to not work with one another. Right. Just as Malcolm said, when we run to take our money outside of the community. But racism, see, you have to be able to accept that. What is it that will make me look at my brother or my sister of color cross-eyed when it comes to doing business? Or if they make a mistake with us in business, we never want to do business with them again. You have to acknowledge that that's racism, because our oppressor will do things against us. We'll write a letter, we'll get mad, and we will turn around and go right back and spend our wealth with them. That's racism. And we have to be able to acknowledge that in order to remove it. See, if we truly believe in love, when the Bible says that we're supposed to love our brother and sister as ourselves, that does not mean for 2 hours or 3 or whatever when you're in church, when you're in the temple, when you're in the synagogue. That means you're supposed to do that 24 hours a day. That means when you get ready to go to work, when you get ready to go in commerce specifically, you're supposed to love your brother and spend your money with your brother the same way you want your brother to spend your money with yourself. Because when you don't do that, that's the seeds of racism that's still alive and exists today. And you have to be able to understand and accept it. We can't expect another people to acknowledge us when we can't acknowledge it ourselves. See, Malcolm taught reparations. It's 50 years later. I haven't seen any reparations. So even though he promoted it, his later message was, you know what? Let's take these billions of dollars and get our own reparations. Right. See, why go crying and begging someone else for what we can do for ourselves? Right. If we took all of our money collectively as a people and pulled it out of their bank and put it in our own bank, we would be wealthy overnight. But there's seeds of racism that say, I can't trust the Black man with my money. I can't trust that Black woman with my money. But I'll go to these other banks and other institutions, because they got a stock market. Put the money in our bank and we can create our own stock. If you don't like me, fine. We'll put Malcolm number on the coin, and then let's create a coin for him. Let's create a stock based on Malcolm. And we'll run it off that. If you don't want to trust the person in the chair, let's put somebody who you do trust. If you say you believe in Jesus, then we'll put his name on the coin, but put your dollar where that is. Right. See, that's when you can't do that, when something inside says, I don't know, I can't trust it, that's racism. That's the seeds of hatred that we were taught to hate one another instead of loving one another. If you can only love your brother or sister for 2 hours in church, you have not overcome.
Mhm. That's powerful, Minister. So we racist against one another.
And it is. See, you can't fight something that you can't see.
That's true. That's true. And
Malcolm saw it. Martin saw it.
And I didn't think black folks can be racist, but we can be racist against one another.
See, we talk about them and say, hey, well, why can't I go get a loan? Okay, that is racism.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why can't we pool our resources and give our own self the loan and give it at a better interest rate?
Right.
All other people do this for themselves, except like you said in the beginning, the descendants of slaves, the black man, the people of color. All other people do this except us, because we still are living in the shackles of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
See, Malcolm and Martin were free. They shook off them shackles. And as leaders, they were able to inspire people to bring them up.
Mm-hmm.
But things within this system said, we got to snuff them out.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are today.
And it's so much more that we can say and talk about these two brothers here. But this particular show won't give us enough time to do so. But we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with the book reading of the day.
At Scott & Associates accounting firm, you can get your taxes done in or outside of the office by an experienced tax professional. To schedule your appointment, give us a call today at 321-754-1360. The number again is 321-754-1360. Or schedule your appointment online at www.countonscott.com.
Hey, this is Jeremiah Israel here, author and host of Live Talk. Just to ask you a question, have you purchased a new book, The Spiritual Significance of a Name? If not, why not? The Spiritual Significance of a Name is a book that can really put you on a journey to defining who you are. Have you ever searched for your purpose or wondered about your purpose? Have you ever considered or thought about the names that you may name your children, or even the name that you may have? These are all powerful thoughts that comes across your mind, and it's all given to you through the Most High, because He put us on this earth with a purpose, and you can define your purpose within your name. Pick up the book today. Go to www.jeremiahisrael.com. That's www.jeremiahisrael.com and purchase the book. Now you can get 20% off. Website at jeremiahisrael.com. Purchase the book so you can be on your journey to defining your true purpose. All right, welcome back to Live Talk. Of course, we today been talking about two gentlemen, two unsung leaders in the Black community that have made some differences in our community and in the world at large. And I want to continue that a little bit in the book reading for today. And the book I want to highlight, and we're going to talk about, like, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to talk about quite a few books. One of the books we're going to get to is The Miseducation of the Negro. One of the other books is going to be Who Are We? And then I want to, I ain't gonna say end then, and then we're gonna talk about a little bit. Well, we're gonna talk about how to study the Bible 2.0. And the reason we're gonna talk, I'm gonna tell you the reason we're gonna talk about each and every one of these books as we go throughout this, the rest of this month and next month. One of the things I want to highlight is the spiritual significance of a name. And the reason I want to talk about this book here is we're talking about two gentlemen that, Malcolm, and we talk about Martin. What people don't know about Martin is Martin wasn't named Martin. Martin was named Michael after his dad. His dad was named Michael from his dad, which his grandfather's name was Michael. It wasn't until he took a pilgrimage to Germany. Actually, it was Germany, and it was after a priest name is when he truly received that name, and he didn't change it on his birth certificate until 1957, and that's because he used that name and it was popular. But the reason I'm sharing this and talking about the spiritual significance of a name, because he became the name and the meaning behind that name, which led to his purpose. And I talk about that in the book when we talk about a spiritual significance of a name and defining your purpose. Martin found his purpose within his name. And if you do your research, you'll see what I'm talking about. And it was something that really stood out to me. And being able to write a book like this at a time like this and understanding the power that's in a name to reflect back on those like leaders like that understood that at that time, but may not have understood it on a level that they could share it with others. And that's very important at this time here. So like I say, and I'm just not going to talk about Martin. Now, he wasn't the only person. Malcolm changed his name. Now you had Malcolm that although he went to prison, and when he came conscious of having that surname, he became Malcolm X instead of Malcolm Little. Now, mind you, he was Malcolm X. There's really no significance and power in that name. Now, that was kind of, although he built up the wisdom and all this, and he talked and made some great speeches, he still didn't have what it took he really didn't find his purpose until he came unto El Shabazz. Exactly. When he came unto El Shabazz, he understood his real purpose. And when it comes to the spiritual significance of a name gives you a purpose in life once you become that name. And these gentlemen, both of these gentlemen, is the epitome of what it means to have a spiritual name and live out your purpose. So I want to share that because I found that to be very unique. And having to write this book at a time like this and having to be able to come across that information should make one even more, I would say, engaged and really want to purchase this book, because it's really a start of really defining your true purpose in life. I'm going to say this, Minister, as far as people like, Black folks that, are descendants of slaves, there shouldn't be a reason why we don't have a culture or a spiritual name outside of having, a government name. We know we probably have government names, and some of us have been, in prison or what have you, that they can't change their name. So, like, if you introducing yourself as Leroy instead of as Zachariah, a name that really has a true meaning to it, that tells me you still have somewhat of a slave mindset. And it's not to talk against nobody, it's to share information so that we're all conscious of the meaning and purpose of a name. And like I say, these two gentlemen, if you say Martin was somebody that inspired you, understand Martin changed his name. Martin lived his name. If you say Malcolm was somebody that inspired you, remember Malcolm changed his name. And that's what brought forth a purpose in his life. So I wanted to share that so everyone would kind of get the gist of it. So you can go out and go to YeremiahIsrael.com and purchase the spiritual significance of a name and truly define your purpose. Minister.
Well, that's powerful that you say that. And I'll just add to it, like what, not to go against anyone, but if as the descendants of slaves, the name you got from your slave master showed that you were his or her property.
Mm-hmm.
And but most slave owners, or even most Europeans here in this country, not even in other peoples, they are most often, some even have a family crest with their name. And that name goes back generations, identifying them with who they are. So when you're talking about the spiritual significance of a name, you really need to be able to divulge into who you are. And that's why you have to be able to embrace your name, because if someone else can say, well, my father got this name, my family had this name since the 1400s,
Mm-hmm.
that ties them back a very popular significance. And then from the 1400s, it went back to 400 BC. See, there's significance in that name because it talks about where they come from, their history, who they are. So embracing your name and understanding who you are is very important in moving forward.
Right.
Because without that knowledge, you really are lacking a connection to who you really are.
That's it. And we're at that time where we will give out some announcements at this time, and we get ready to close out. To stay connected to us, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Live Talk Orlando. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Live Talk Orlando. You want to come on to the show? Join us on the show? You'd like for us to interview you? Then email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com. You can also follow the host on Facebook at Define Your Purpose 2021, on Instagram at Jeremiah Israel, and you can visit the website www.jeremiahisrael.com. Make sure you pick up a copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name. All right, Minister, we get ready to close out. I'll let you start first.
Well, we just look forward to the upcoming shows so we can talk about the unsung leaders that we have when we say in American history, but from a perspective of our history, which has been missed. We're going to bring some of that history forward.
Indeed. And we want to thank you for tuning in to the show today. Those of you that came in on the app, and for anyone that's that came in through on Facebook as well. And like always, from the author and the host of the show, I'd like to say peace and prosperity. And then from Live Talk, we'd like to say we're out. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
For live.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready? For Live Talk,
Yeah.
because it's about time to set it on. Are you ready?
Let's go.
For the word of the day,
Hey.
the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith.
Say
Are you ready?
what?
For Live Talk,
Yeah.
because it's about time to set it on.
Live talk. This live talk. Live talk. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. We're going all the way live with it. With Live Talk, increase your mentality, put away carnality, and increase your spirituality. Let's
Are you
go.
ready?
Live Talk.
Are you ready?
This Live Talk.
Are you ready?
Live Talk.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready
Live talk.
for the word of the day? The knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk? Because it's about time to set it off.